dàbí ènìyàn arónípin. Èèyàn ìbá dàbí Ọlọ́run, wọn ìbá pé kójò máa rọ̀. Wọn ìbá ṣàyè bó ṣe fẹ́, wọn ìbá dórí ayé kodò, wọn ìbá sábẹ́fẹ́ lówó, wọn ìbá pé kórùn máa rọ̀. Agbára ìbá fà wọ́n bí ọtí, wọn ìbá kọjú ìjà sọ́dọ̀. Ènìyàn arónípin ẹ má kú ìyà, ẹ kú òṣì. Ẹlẹ́dà kì í gbàgbé ènìyàn, èrò rere ló ní sí wa o. Bẹ́ẹ̀nìyàn fi ra ẹ̀wé Ọlọ́run, á jẹ́ ra ènìyàn o. Ẹ̀rùpẹ̀ lásán ṣàlàjẹ́, ìlú Ọlọ́run ni ó sì. Ayé ń retí ẹlẹ́yà o, níbo lẹ fi t'Olúwa sí? Ojú lójú dẹ́dẹ́dẹ́, àwọn ànábì tó máa rọ̀ sí. Ènìyàn rọra jí, Ọlọ́run gbé lókè, á sọ̀rọ̀ máa yẹ ọ́. Ìwọ kọ́ ló dání, ìwọ kọ́ ló bìrì, ìwọ kọ́ ló wọ́n mi dàgbà. Arónípin o, ó fìyà. Ìwọ kọ́ ló lórí, ìwọ kọ́ ló wíwá. Ó sì sọ̀rọ̀ bí Elédùmarè, á sọ̀rọ̀ máa yẹ ọ́. Ẹ̀yin kọ́ lẹ dá mi, ẹ̀yin kọ́ lẹ bí mi, ẹ̀yin kọ́ lẹ wọ́n mi dàgbà. Arónípin ẹ kú òṣì. Ẹ̀yin kọ́ ló lórí, ẹ̀yin kọ́ ló wíwá. Ẹ sì sọ̀rọ̀ bí Elédùmarè, á sọ̀rọ̀ máa yẹ ọ́. Dáfídì lọ́jọ́ wọn ni òun Gòláyátì, èmi ò lè gbàgbé. Gòláyátì arónípin, ó gbé Dáfídì níjà o. Ó ní ọmọ kékeré, ìwọ ló fẹ́ bá mi jà. Bàbá ayẹyẹ ráúráú, ṣe ni máa fà ẹ̀yà pẹ́rẹpẹ̀rẹ. Máa fi ẹ̀jẹ̀ tán yánnyán, máa fojú ẹ̀rí máa gbó. Máa pa ẹ̀rù tán pátá, máa fi imú ẹ̀fọn fèrè. Kò fẹ́ mẹ́wẹ́ mọ́ rárá, irú àmì fífò lè rí o. Dáfídì bá fún lèsì, ó ní Gòláyátì ọjọ́ ikú rẹ̀ pé. Ó tàn wá orúkọ Ọlọ́run, ẹni tí wọ́n pè ní ìjà o. Ká má fọ̀rọ̀ rárá, àwọn méjèèjì wọ̀ yá jà o. Àwọn méjèèjì wọ̀ yá jà o. Àwọn méjèèjì wọ̀ yá jà o. Ọ̀nà tán bí owó, àwọn méjèèjì wọ̀ yá jà o. Gàrà tí Dáfídì máa yọ, òkúta ṣá ló bẹ̀ lọ́wọ́ o. Gàrà tí Dáfídì máa yọ, òkúta ṣá ló fi ránṣẹ́, òkúta ṣá ló bẹ̀ lọ́wọ́ o. Ká má fọ̀rọ̀ gùn rárá, àtàrí Gòláyátì fọ́, àtàrí Gòláyátì fọ́, àtàrí Gòláyátì túká, àtàrí Gòláyátì wó. Ẹ wá wáyé alá.
We got loads of things lined up for you. The interview segment, the paper review segment. We're enjoying you, so please stay tuned as we bring you many more of this on New Frontiers Television and on the program AM Live today.
And then we move on to our big stories. Of course, we bring you our big stories, which are events from the past days into the wee hours of this morning. And the first will be taken from Nigeria, of course, all from Nigeria, but from the National Assembly struck the presidency. You'll remember that last week the National Assembly did pass the budget, which was presented to it December 2016 by President Muhammadu Buhari. But yes, last week, precisely, the National Assembly, having walked through it by its appropriation committee, and of course, the heads of the committee laid the budget before the House's Joint Committee on Appropriation, laid the budget before the House, and of course, we did mention that the budget skyrocketed. It's now at 7.441 trillion naira. It was hijacked by 143 billion naira. But as it is, National Assembly will be presenting the budget before acting President Yemi Osinbajo for his consideration and, of course, assent if possible.
Yes, the National Assembly last week said the budgets will be presented this week, and earlier in the part of this week, it was told that the budget will be presented on Tuesday, which was yesterday, and as it's up till last night, the budget was not presented to the acting president, and of course there was information again from the National Assembly that the budgets will be presented to the Nigerians are waiting. The 2016 fiscal year has ended, and currently the country, as it is, the country is not running on any budget, and we do hope that the acting president will get the budget so they can assent to it and work can begin. And just like Jumake said, the budget has it has increased from the initial amount to a larger amount, and of course that this is some of the reasons why some are saying the budget is being delayed. Taking the budget to the acting president is being delayed. In the budget, let me just quickly take a few of the things that seems to be causing controversies concerning the budget. The budget for power works and housing has the highest sectoral allocation of 86.533 billion naira, up from the 529. It used to be 529 billion naira, but now it's over 586 billion naira. And of course, we know that the National Assembly bill too it has also increased with a sum of 10 billion naira. And likewise, there are also other bills, other expenditures that seems to have increased. Then the reconstruction of the Nnamdi Azikiwe Airport is going to be gulping lots of money, and all of those things are what the Chairman Senate Committee on Media and Public Affairs says the National Assembly is trying to look at before giving the final budget to the presidency, and we do expect that the presidency gets the budget. Whatever discussion is supposed to be made should have been done before now, and for the numbers have skyrocketed to the amount we currently have now. We expect that proper investigation would have gone through, and the nation can start running on the 2017 budget.
Basically, it's important that the 2017 budget, well, as much as Nigerians are asking that it be passed into law, we want its full implementation, such that there isn't any delay as it was with the 2016 budget. Of course, like the last mentioned, several allocations within the budget from what the president submitted or presented as a word last year increased. We should also mention that SERAP, an anti-social social rights group, has written to the president, acting president, asking him to make sure that he perused the budget and of course reduced it. And Nigerians are also, there was a vox pop in the papers yesterday as to how much this 2017 budget reflects a willingness of the Nigerian government to diversify from oil. We understand that the oil price isn't been stable, the oil production in itself hasn't been stable, but of course with the much we have at the moment, there seems not to be a reflection of our decision to look into agriculture and of course reduce spending. Also the fact that the recurrent and the capital expenditures were also added, were monies were added to it. Basically, every allocations were increased from what the president submitted. So we're hoping that one of the things the acting president, Yemi Osinbajo, will do before he ascends to it, particularly, would be to look into how realistic this budget will be, considering the fact that we're still trying all we can to get out of recession. We have debt to pay. We're more likely to also be borrowing to fund this budget. So a lot would need to be looked into just before the acting president ascends to it. But as it is, we're hoping that the presidency will do the needful before the before assent is given to the 2017 budget.
Okay, moving away from budget issues, still within Nigeria, and of course we've told you earlier that all our big stories are from Nigeria. There's been a rumor spreading right from February when the president first took his official medical leave, when the first time he wrote the National Assembly that he was going on a medical vacation to the United Kingdom. There's been rumors going around saying that some military officials are getting interested, they're getting agitated with the situation of things, and there's a coup plan going on in the nation. Well, as much as people want to dismiss it, as much as we all decide to turn deaf ears to it, well, the Army Chief of Staff, the Army Chief Buratai, has come out to talk about it yesterday, warning all Nigerian soldiers to stay off politics, because recently the rumors are spreading, are becoming more and more intense than before. The Chief of Army Staff, Tukur Buratai, who gave the warning yesterday, told the soldiers to stay off anything that has to do with politics. I gave the order yesterday through his spokesman, Sonny Usman, who is also a brigadier general. According to him, some top politicians have been visiting some soldiers whose name were not mentioned, and of course it was mentioned that they belong to the junior cadre. They are mostly junior officials. That some top politicians have been visiting them and trying to encourage them to topple the government, to topple democracy as we have it in Nigeria. And it should be noted that we've had 18 years of uninterrupted democracy since we got back power from the military regime in 1999. And to think that some people are actually planning to take us back to where we used to be. Well, I'm glad that the Nigerian Army has decided to nip all of these rumors in the bud and decide to take action. Just yesterday also, earlier in the week, there were some reshuffling in the Nigerian Army, which we are hoping would solve the problem on ground.
Basically, rumors, like Jolas mentioned, has been peddling that this likely to, God forbid, be a coup. And of course, Israel will remind us of the fact that we've had to deal with several hardships, from not to mention the July 29, 1996 coup, the January 1966, July 29, 1966, January 1966, July 1977, which brought in late Brigadier Murtala Muhammad as head of state, and of course the 1976 Dimka coup, which led to the assassination of Brigadier General Murtala Muhammad and the emergence of Lieutenant Colonel Olusegun Obasanjo as head of state. The Chief of Army Staff, Buratai, said that no member of the Nigerian Army should be involved in politics, and he's also asked that, well, anyone who's interested in politics should step out of the Nigerian Army and of course get involved fully into politics, because one of the core principles of the military is that they stay apolitical and respect the constitutions, which is what the spokesperson of Tukur Buratai has said, that we're going to be ensuring, that's the Nigerian Army will be ensuring that they stayed apolitical and of course focus on protecting the borders of the country, being involved in what the needful as it pertains to them is, which is a protection of the Nigerian border. And of course, what with the preparation for the 2019 elections are on top gear, Nigerians are asking. We've enjoyed 18 smooth years, uninterrupted years of democracy. We would expect that continues, and that's why calls are being made, not just from the Chief of Army Staff, but of course from every quarters, that soldiers would stay off politics and not be used by some individuals who are out for their own personal personal achievement as a way, which is likely to be against the ideals of democracy. So yes, if perhaps you've come in contact with this rumor, it would be good to alleviate your fears that there wouldn't be any such thing. But as much as Nigeria, the military is deciding to have its members stay away from political issues and not be used to usurp government, it's also important that the civilians would also realize that we have a stake in protecting Nigeria and upholding the tenets of democracy. We're just 18 years. We rightly mentioned the fact that the US has had 200 years of democracy. They cooperated, they worked together, and that's why both the Nigerian military and the civilians, and of course politicians, will realize that we all have a stake towards protecting and upholding the ideals of democracy, such that we would become point of contact years to come to some other countries of how much we've enjoyed the benefits of democracy without any usurp of government in the process. So yes, all tensions should be doused. There isn't going to be any coup, and any member of the military who's interested in politics can rightfully sign off and then join politics.
Yes, so much talk on the Nigerian army and the rumors of the coup. We'll take a break and we'll return with more big stories. Don't go away.
Thank you for staying with us at Still AM Live. And just before we take the break, we're looking at some of our big stories. And we're still looking at them, and we're taking this. It's within the education sector. Of course, Nigerians are aware of the fact that the university tertiary, unified tertiary examination kicked off on Saturday, 13th of May. And of course, it will run through the week and end on 28th of May, that's next Saturday. But of course, JAMB, through its spokesperson, Fabian Benjamin, has said it's released the results of the first batch of candidates who wrote the exams. We should mention that 742,906 candidates took the exam on its first day, that's September 13, 2017, of course. And of course, Monday 15th, actually, 401,292 were expected to have written the exams yesterday, but results have been released just within 24 hours of the examination. And well, if you wrote the exam, it would be good you went to check the examination. But of course, this isn't without issues still around the examination, the Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination. There are still issues, but the much we would give to you this morning is that results have been released. If you wrote your exams in the early days of the examination, results have been released.
Well, and candidates are expected to check their messages, their text messages for notifications, and also go and check their emails just so that they can have the information on results. But just like Jumoke said, the exam, the UTME exam, didn't come without issues at the Ladoke Akitola University on Monday, where candidates were expected to write exams at their CBT center. Students were barred from entering the school because the student union government and of course who are the major student bodies, student leader bodies, with some students went to block the gates of the school, and they didn't allow the students to write the exam, after which the Joint Admission Matriculation Board came up to say that candidates will be relocated to different centers. So the relocation had been done, and candidates are expected to go and check, to print out their notification, check their email for their notification and print it out, and they will be sitting for their exams. But some are expected to sit for the exams on Thursday, while others will sit on Saturday. There's still some, according to information also, some batches of students will also take their examination today. And the good thing is that for me, I think for the first time, JAMB is being proactive about major issues. I was actually scared for students who couldn't write their exams on Monday, hoping that thinking that it would be the usual delay, or at the end of the day, not being able to write the exams at all. But to know that JAMB is making provision for them to take the exam in nearby towns and ensure that they are also able to write the exams. Also, 1.7 million candidates will be writing this year UTME, and according to information from JAMB, the released results, well, I wouldn't know what Mr. Benjamin means by being fair. It says the results is fair. So we expect, for me, I think it's a sign that students did perform well, and we are hoping that as more results come, it will move from fair to good, which is what I would have expected to hear. But well, more students are still expected to write, and we hope by at the end of by Saturday, by next week, so to say, we'll have full results of all of the candidates. But if you have written your exams, go and check, the results are out.
Well, just to pick up from where Jola stopped, the fact that the spokesperson for JAMB, Fabian Benjamin, has said that the result actually fair, would mean that, well, every procedure was accurate, and of course students performed better than they've done in previous years, considering the fact that last year just about 1.2 million students registered for the exams, and we have an increment to 1.7 million students registering for the exam this year. It means the students are coming to terms with the fact that hard work really does pay. But again, just to mention the fact around the issue with students being denied access into the university environment, which is the centers within the Ladoke Akintola University of Technology. There were speculations that some of the students might have to write the exams at the University of Ilorin. But again, these are issues I would say should have been resolved before now, because the fact that these are students who already had a mindset to write the exams on Monday at a particular, at a designated center, having to go all the way out of most likely Bomosho into Ilorin to write examinations. For the sake of subsequent times, it would be necessary that issues be resolved for the sake of students who probably do not even have the wherewithal of what might happen, and such that the systems are not disrupted. But again, if you're in Bomosho or your state, if you had to go through that issue. We're hoping that it would have given you some more time to prepare for the exams, which has been slated for further days in Ogbomoso, probably outside of Ogbomoso. But again, we're saying all of the best to students who are yet to write exams, and for those who have written, we do hope that your results indeed are fair, just as a spokesperson said.
And I think this is also a time to address the management of our universities, and of course the state government, both the Oyo State government and the Osun State government, that has allowed the issue of the Ladoke Akintola University of Technology to degenerate to such an extent where it gets to affect external issues, because according to students of the school, they didn't allow those who were supposed to write the exams in because of the crisis going on in the school, the incessant strikes, the issue of subventions by both the Oyo State and the Osun State government. So well, students decided to take a law into their hands and bar JAMB from conducting an examination in their school for them. I think I was speaking with one of the students, and he was saying that well, there's no point allowing incoming students to come write an exam when the students in the school are not enjoying their education. They've been home for a while, and even at resumption, things are still not going on as it should be. The school management should have written a letter to the, I'll call it, council of the student union body, to ensure that they broker peace between the student union body and either the state government or it's the school management, and ensure that those who are supposed to write exams were allowed to write the exam. As we know, school institutions are public properties. It is not a personal properties, and these students, as much as we know that they do have a right to show their grievances, but again, it's their rights shouldn't be used to usurp the rights of some other people, and I'm hoping that we wouldn't have a something of this nature happen again, because I can imagine if it was something that couldn't have been changed or refixed, that's how students would have missed the exam and not able to take the exams again. So we do hope that the Oyo State government and Osun State government find a lasting solution to issues at the Ladoke Akintola University, and of course allow peace to reign among the students and the management.
Well, you know what, just because you mentioned the fact that students actually decided to block access to students who are going to write JAMB, they've actually not, well, they did lend the voice, they did make their point, but in the process they affected some persons to whom they should be better examples, because these are people who were supposed to be writing exams to gain access into the university. They've laid an example which we wouldn't expect should be one they would lay. The government, of course, will expect one rise to the responsibilities in ensuring that there are smooth academic sessions within the Ladoke Akintola University. But the students who had actually blocked passage of denied allowance or denied access of students to write examinations did pass a wrong signal to the students who had registered for the Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination. But again, we're hoping that overall this will not affect the exams and the release of the results of students who were denied access into the university environment. We're hoping that things would go on smoothly with JAMB itself, and of course every student would be fairly treated overall.
So we'll take a break to allow for the morning brief segment. So we'll take headlines from the papers. Don't go away. You're still watching AM Live, coming to you from the studios of New Frontiers Television. This is the Morning Brief segment where we bring you headlines from the dailies. On the front page of the Punch newspaper, people approaching soldiers for political reasons. This is coming from Army Chief Tukur Buratai. Any officer or soldier engaged in politicking will have himself or herself to blame. Details is on page 8 of the Punch newspaper. Federal government working on 2,500 tips from whistleblowers. This is coming from Minister of Finance, Kemi Adeosun. Gunmen kill husband, wife, 4 children in Ogun State. National Assembly forwards budget to Osibajo today. 3.1 billion naira subsidy fraud. EFCC rearranges Tukur, Arishikola Sons and others. Nigeria gets $29 billion from Shell JVs in 4 years. Ahmed advocates reform at local government level. On the death of Senator Isiaka Adeleke. Corona threatens to arrest police chief DPO. Drama in Federal University of Agriculture, Abeokuta, as workers hold separate rallies on suspended Vice Chancellor. Command to arraign Lagos DPO for killing apprentice. Air Force man who killed lover faces court martial on Friday. Reps Caucus sets up panel on PDP leadership tussle. And there's a picture insert here of a man tied to a police van in Edo State. And moving to the back page of the Punch newspaper. Foreign exchange beyond Central Bank of Nigeria. That's the march from the front and back pages of the Punch newspaper.
And onto the front page of the Guardian newspaper for today, the major headline is NNPC, CBN, 36 others failed to submit budget proposals. And it riders, oil agency refutes claim Apex Bank inaccessible. Budgeting responsible for economic woes. Details continue on page 6. Away from that, Boko Haram fighters returning to Sambisa Forest, says report. The details also continue on page 6. On News 3, Southeast Senators Ohanaeze decry region's exclusion from rail projects. And still from News 3, high food prices contradict latest declining inflation rate. And moving on to News 7, APC commends Ayo Fayose for immortalizing Adeyinka Adebayo. On the Grandmaster with Dare Babarisa, this hour, when is he coming? This is in celebration of 30 years after the death of the legendary Obafemi Awolowo. And a picture inside here with details. Former Central Bank Governor Charles Soludo, former President Olusegun Obasanjo, and Chairman ACE Foundation Tony Elumelu at the 10th anniversary of the African Finance Corporation. In Abuja yesterday, they seemed to be sharing a good laugh, which is a good one in a time like this. That's the much on the front page of the Guardian newspaper.
Moving on to the inside page of the Punch newspaper. Lagos at 50. Ambode calls for special prayers. $5.9 billion rail project. Southeast alleges exclusion. Senate summons Amechi. Ambode bans VIOs permanently from Lagos Road. And still on the inside page of the Punch newspaper. Herdsmen attack. Niger death toll hits 27. Bombers kill 5 in Borno. And finally, Rivers begins reclamation of coastal towns. Well, that's the much from the inside page of the Punch newspaper.
From the news column of the Guardian newspaper, Osinbajo, Autumn, that's Samuel Autumn of Benue State, Mungono, meet over herdsmen's attack. Lawmakers seek high GPs, NEMA support for Delta victims. Government promises to bring down local rice price. Reps query CBN ministry over illegal payment of $163.7 million to pre-shipment inspection agent. Exemption of customs, others from pension passes. Second reading. And fake antivirus raises Nigeria's volatility to cyber attacks. Minister advocates building a resilient defense against cybercrime. Coroner threatens to arrest DPO over inquiry into late Senator Adele case. That. And finally, EFCC arraigns Babangida Aliyu for alleged money laundering. And that's the one from news.
Moving to elsewise column, let's still watch out for Ebola. This is coming from a professor of anatomy, Oladapo Ashiru. Nigerian Urban Reproductive Health Initiative begs Oyo State government to recruit more health workers. Lawmakers advises doctors to go into politics. And moving on to editorial, Ayade fire these certificate forgers. That's an editorial on the Punch newspaper and on 2 letters, making a case for Nigeria's new political economy. That's the much from editorial letters and 8 columns of the Punch newspaper.
A quick look into the telecoms news. Telecoms sector contributed 9% to GDP in first quarter, had 15 trillion naira to economy since liberalization. NCC to review MNO's KPIs on service quality. And finally, SB Telecoms releases honors list.
Moving on to business and economy. Federal government spent $163.7 million on pre-shipment agents without appropriation. This is coming from the House of Representatives. Inflation rate drops to 17.24%. Those are according to statistics by the National Bureau of Statistics. And well, this is a good indication towards the end of recession in Nigeria. Nigeria gets, I took that earlier, $29 billion from Shell in 4 years. Budgetary spending alone can't address infrastructure deficits. This is coming from Minister of Finance, Kemi Adeosun. That's the much I'll be taking from business and economic column.
And on to politics. Aregbesola slowly road to Southwest Regional Integration. Secrecy shrouds APC primary exercise. Women group calls for gender equality. LSEIC, agency security agents collaborate. And still from politics, local Labour Party pledges the development as PDP denies moving to APDA. Still now on to the opinion column. Political parties, upheavals and changes to come. This is by Alexander Ifeanyichukwu. Is corruption the problem of Nigeria? This is a rhetorical question. Well, with a couple of opinion by Wilfred Uzaini. Trump, a dysfunctional wannabe strongman. This is a comment shared by Rogers Boyma, who is principal consultant at Media and Events Management, Oxford. Cranky Octogenarians and Professors, a sequel to it by Patrick Dele-Cole. It's continuing from yesterday. And finally, from the editorial, confronting Nigeria's energy challenge. That's the mode from these different columns.
Moving on to appointments and management column of the Punch newspaper. Life Progress Booster supports 200 entrepreneurs with grants. Lagos Nigerian Institute of Public Relations commits to good leadership. And moving on to health column now. Shoot your swords. Ex-minister tells doctors and pharmacists. Well, I think these are in relation to information last week where the pharmacists are saying they are as important as the doctors. I think there's an internal beef going on between pharmacists and doctors, and they've been called to sheath their swords and get back to work, which is the important thing. This 1 billion naira HIV drugs expired in storage. This is coming from the federal government. The Minister of Health, Professor Isaac Adewale, is saying that. And well,
will that be a good indication?
It's not, considering that there are lots of people out there who do not have access to these drugs, and you had 1 billion naira drugs that got expired in storage. Wow. I wonder what the federal government was keeping it for.
It sounded to me like we have a reduction in the number of persons coming down with the virus.
Okay, but well, maybe we'll take the story much later. That's the much from the columns.
Okay, now on to Guardian Business. Nigeria loses 3.3 trillion oil revenue last year. I take the report again. Nigeria lost 3.3 trillion naira oil revenue last year, as OPEC members record lowest earnings in 13 years. First Bank sensitizes SMEs, that's small and medium enterprises, operators to CBN foreign exchange window accessibility. On maritime, hope rises for Nigeria's return to IMO, which is International Maritime Organization Council. Women in Maritime Africa Group birthed in Nigeria. Port concessions spurs $2 billion investment by terminal operators. And now on to industry. Bank of Industry rallies DBN, other DFIs for 1 trillion naira to aid industrial development. And finally, NACC, which is the Nigerian American Chamber of Commerce, to boost trade volume with African food products exhibition.
And onto sports. Udo Obong vows to stop old foreign athletes. Governor, that's the Bauchi State governor, has points rescue team for Wiki. That's okay. There's a rescue team appointed for Wiki tourists in the next 2 weeks in Bauchi State. League to end on September 3rd. That's the Nigerian Premier League. It will be ending on September 3. Delta Principals Cup excites Zenith Bank. And still on sports, Leicester end of season award delights Ndidi. Start time sets for Bayern Freiburg clash, and there are some fixtures for matches that would play today and tomorrow. Today for the English Premier League, Southampton will face Manchester United 7:45 p.m. Nigerian time, and Leicester versus Tottenham on Thursday 7:45 p.m. That's the match for Punch Sports for today.
And just before I move on to Guardian Sport, to look at the reports from the World News. Trump defends sharing classified data with Russia meets Turkey's Erdogan. EU countries to decide on Singapore trade deal. Museveni, that's the Uganda president, warns against torture use. Cote d'Ivoire government soldiers reach agreement to end violent mutiny. And finally, UN condemns Pyongyang's missile test, vows new sanction. And finally, on to Guardian Sport. NFF, the Nigerian Football Federation, coaches storm Abuja for salaries screening. Ra Omagbemi on standby. Ahead of the Russia 2018 World Cup, will beat Zambia and Nigeria to qualify. Algeria's new coach boasts. Finally, Senate begins debate on the National Sports Council bill. That's the mod from sports this morning.
Okay, we'll take a break and we'll return to take some of the stories from the newspaper. It's still AHM Live coming to you from the studios of New Frontiers Television. And we took a news earlier on the 1 billion naira HIV drug that expired in storage, according to Professor Isaac Adewale, the Minister of Health. Well, according to Isaac Adewale, he has revealed that over 1.8 billion naira drugs for HIV patients expired in storage. And according to him, I think the major point he's driving at here is that there are lots of challenges the nation is facing concerning the eradication of HIV/AIDS. And as much as we want to say that there's no available medical reactions to some of these things, that there are insufficient drugs, the drugs are expensive, some have to pay for it, some collect for free, but again, those drugs are not available. He's now saying that it's time for the whole industry, that's the health industry, to be sanitized, because again, these drugs are there. It's just that the patients are not given the drugs. That means that I think that should be between the storekeeper and sometimes the health workers don't even have an idea that the drugs are there. So it's for me, it's appalling, and it's something, it should be a shameful thing for a Minister of Health to come out to say, oh, it's not like we don't have the drugs, we have the drugs, but they get expired in storage. It's calls to questioning who are the people in charge of storing drugs, distributing drugs across the federation, and making sure that patients have access to drugs. If we keep complaining that people are dying because they don't have access to drugs, people are buying fake drugs from off the counter, and the federal government has these drugs, and look at the billions of naira we're wasting every year. We keep allocating budget to the Ministry of Health, and we keep saying, everyone comes up to say that these allocations are not enough for them to run the sector. But again, with the allocation that have been put to proper use, still is not implemented. People still do not have access to the drugs, just because some people forgot that the drugs are there.
Just while I was thinking that this is on account of the fact that there's a reduction on people coming out with the virus. But again, while we're looking at this peculiarity as it concerns HIV/AIDS and then the drugs for it, it's unfortunate that even for several other health issues, there seem to be issues with accessing drugs which are available. Either they're costly, it's either that they're being kept away or taken up by some of the officials within the health sector as well. But while it's good that the health minister, Isaac Adewale, has noticed this, we shouldn't just stop at this report. What should be the proactive measure to change all of these issues within the health sector? The fact that the drugs will be made accessible and of course affordable to people who need the drugs, whether it's HIV, people who have contacted the HIV the virus, or those who have a particular health challenge. Drug and health facilities should be made accessible and affordable to these people, and we don't have reports of drugs expiring on the shelves. We said over and over that the health sector needs some total revamping, and it's one of the things we need to do is that health facilities, drugs are made accessible to people who need them as and at when due. It's very important we did that. But just to look away from that issue, one other issue which has caught my attention from the Guardian newspaper is a report by the United Nations Human Commission, for refugees, UNHCR, saying that Boko Harams are returning to the Sambiso forest. Of course, we remember that the over 82 girls particularly who were released a couple of weeks ago were gotten by swapping. Some Boko Haram insurgents were released and then we got the girls. But now a concern has been raised by the UNHCR that members of the Boko Haram faction are regrouping and rearming and returning to the Sambiso forest. Just while we're looking at the fact that the Chief of Army Staff has said that it is no business of any member of the military to be involved in politics, I think this is one issue we should begin to pay attention to. The fact that we shouldn't sit on our horse. We shouldn't think that we've defeated insurgents. Just last week, over the weekend, there had been an attack by these insurgents at the University of Maiduguri. It means that we're not completely done with the fight against terrorism in Nigeria. So for members of the Nigerian army, if you feel like, of course we're getting the girls back. yeah, we may be getting the girls back, but of course we should not stop until the fight against terrorism is fought to a finish. And it means we understand all of the threats, all of the hazards you all face, but we're encouraging you, a prayers that would show that it's high time we return back to the Sambisa forest, because the enemies are regrouping and reharming themselves to going back to the forest. It's just a continual fight against terrorism, which as it is, isn't finished yet.
Well, I for one, I think I'm surprised to know that the Sambisa forest is still as vulnerable as it used to be, because I would have thought that, and of course the army base is still at Sambisa forest. So if the Boko Haram terrorist group are regrouping, then it means that the Nigerian army should intensify their search, and of course expand their reach. If maybe they've retreated to a more safer place in the Sambisa forest, it's time to go back into the forest and ensure that that territory is kept safe for the people. That we know that well, according to information released to us, that the Sambisa forest is a very large place, and where people can actually hide. That has lots of caves and lots of hiding spots for criminals. So we expect that the Nigerian army will take those reports seriously, and also we know that the Nigerian army also has their own intelligence. They should look into this and ensure that this is not just a war that we keep fighting, winning some, losing some. We want to stop losing. For me, I think it's time for Nigerians to stop losing some. We should win all of these fights. Like Jumoke Riley said, in Maiduguri, there have been attacks in Maiduguri over the weekend, and the rate of the deaths rate tolls are increasing again by the day, courtesy of the Boko Haram insurgents group. And we would have thought that at this stage we wouldn't be talking about the Boko Haram terrorist group again, but we know that globally terrorism is not a war that the world is winning. So we will keep fighting it until an end is put to it. And while we keep fighting the Boko Haram terrorist group, it's also important to know that the herdsmen are also becoming a danger to the country. The Southern Kaduna issue came up and it's died down, but again there are attacks in Niger State. Lots of people have been killed by the Fulani herdsmen, and I think you took a news from the Guardian newspaper about the governor of Benue State having a meeting concerning with Osibajo concerning this main issue. For me, we should stop talking. We've done a lot of talking during the Southern Kaduna clinic. There were lots of talking, lots of panels set up, but again there's no action concerning it. We should nip it in the bud before it becomes a major thing, like the Boko Haram crisis that we've been dealing with since 2011 up till this moment. And we do hope that the world will be a peaceful place as it is.
Basically, the world, we need a peaceful place to all live in. And while we're calling on the necessary quarters, the Nigerian army and everyone who's got a stake in this, Nigerians should also remember that we're our brother's keeper. Be very sensitive, and of course take note of your neighbors. And when you feel there's something suspicious, call the necessary lines for safety purpose. Nigeria belongs to all of us. We'll take a break to allowing for the news from our news desk. Please stay with us.
Good morning and welcome to Morning News coming to you from the studios of the New Frontiers Television. My name is Temitope Oladipo. The Senate has explained that the need for authentication of the past 2017 appropriation bill was the rationale behind the delay in the transmission of the document to the executive arm of government for assent. The defense on the delay is coming 5 days after the National Assembly passed the appropriation bill of 7.4 trillion naira, which represents an increase of 143 billion naira from what was presented last year by President Muhammadu Buhari. Meanwhile, the Senate disclosed that the document will be transmitted any moment from now to the presidency. Addressing newsmen on the delay in the transmission, Chairman Senate Committee on Media and Public Affairs, Senator Sabi Abdullah, APC Niger North, explained that the passage of the budget document does not automatically mean that the document will be transmitted immediately, adding that the joint committees on appropriations still must carry out its assignments, which they are concluding. The Ministry of Niger Delta Affairs has planned to terminate about 6 abandoned projects spread across the region with a view to enhance the development of the region. It will be recalled that the Minister, Pastor Uguru Uzani, had made this known in Abuja while receiving a report on the audit and review of the East West Road and other projects of the ministry. Uzani said following the report from the Ministerial Technical Audit Committee on the contracts awarded between 2009 and 2015 in the Niger Delta, some projects had been proposed for termination. He listed the project to include construction of Okuta Mbano Junction, Orie Market, Lumara Igbokua 35 km in Abia State, land reclamation and erosion projects at Ogudu, Abia State, Phase 1, Abia State. Others are Idoro Eastern Itam Water Supply Scheme, also in Akwa Ibom. The Non-Academic Staff Union of Universities and Senior Staff Association of Nigerian Universities of the Federal University of Agriculture, Abeokuta, has organized different rallies in favor and against the suspension of the Vice Chancellor, Professor Olushola Oyewole, by the Minister of Education, Malam Adamu. The suspension order was conveyed in a letter dated May 8, 2017 and signed by the Acting Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education, Uzaini Adamu. However, things took a different twist when members of NASU and SANU gathered separately within the campus to express their support and opposition for the embattled VC respectively. The fourth set of the ongoing Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination has been released. This is just as a Joint Admission and Matriculation Board asked candidates in Ogbomoso to print notification of their new examination centers from their email addresses. The head Public Affairs JAMB, Mr. Fabian Benjamin, in a statement said the results of 742,906 candidates who sat for the examination on Saturday and Monday was released within 24 hours. Candidates are to check their email addresses or visit the board website for the results. A total of 742,906 candidates sat for the examination on Saturday and Monday. Another 401 and 292 candidates are expected to join them today, raising the number to 1,144,198 out of 1,718,425. According to Benjamin, the candidates who have been posted to nearby towns such as Shaki, Agua, Moju, and Ibadan are to sit for the examination between Thursday 18th June and Saturday 28th June at their new locations. In response to the renewed outbreak of Ebola in Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC, the Nigerian government has activated a preparedness plan by setting up an Ebola Preparedness Working Group, EPWG, even as passengers with fever arriving from country where Ebola has been detected are to be investigated. Disclosing this in a statement, the Technical Assistant Communication of Nigerian Center for Disease Control, NCDC, Dr. Lawal Bakari, said that the Ebola Preparedness Working Group was put together at an emergency meeting convened on Monday by NDCD to coordinate immediate risk management of the situation in the DRC and coordinate the strengthening of prevention and preparedness for any potential introduction of Ebola virus into Nigeria. The meeting, chaired by the Chief Executive Officer of NCDC, Dr. Chikwe Ikweazu, with representatives from the Department of Public Health and Port Health Services of the Federal Ministry of Health, World Health Organization, and the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, U.S. Centers for Disease Control, the African Field Epidemiology Network, and the University of Maryland, is to guide the country's preparedness activities. Bakare observed that in the coming weeks, the NCDC-led Ebola Preparedness Working Group will provide regular updates as necessary on the outbreak in the DRC and provide information on how to protect Nigerians and Nigerians from Ebola. The Economic and Financial Crimes Commission has rearranged the son of former national chairman of the People's Democratic Party, Alhaji Bamanga Tukur Maud, and the son of the late Ibadan multi-billionaire chief Alao Abishekola Abdullahi for conspiracy, obtaining money under false pretense and altering. Also arraigned on 38 counts before the Lagos State High Court on Tuesday, where Okonogo Alex and the complaints of the defendants, Etana PLC Limited and Stars Inspection Services Nigeria Limited. The FCC claimed that the defendants conspire among themselves and obtained the sum, which is over 3 million naira, from the federal government under the guise that the money was for the importation of premium motor spirits. The defendant pleaded not guilty when the charges were read to them. Counsel for the first and second defendants, Mr. Tayo Oyitibo San, as well as counsel for the third defendant, Mr. Aderemi Oguntoye, pleaded with the court to allow the defendants to maintain the bail term granted earlier by Justice Lateef Lawa Akako. The trial judge, Justice Akib Oshodi, granted their request. The Minister of Finance, Mrs. Kemi Adeosun, has told the Senate that the foreign loan of $5.8 billion offered Nigeria by China Exim Bank was tied to a very stringent condition that when the job commences, Chinese construction firm must be the one that will be engaged to execute the contract. Also, the Senate has summoned the Minister of Transportation, Mr. Chibuke Amechi, to explain the reasons for the exclusion of the Eastern Corridor of Nigeria rail lines from the proposed loan. The Senate said it has disturbed that the eastern section of the rail segment, which has a link between the southeast to northeast parts of the rail line, as contained in the request for approval of the federal government 2016 to 2018, was completely excluded from the request. Meanwhile, speaking when she appeared before the Senator Shehu Sani, APC Kaduna Central, led Senate Committee on Local and Foreign Debt, Adeosun noted that Chinese Exim Bank loan was highly competitive, hence the approval was based on first-come, first-served basis, stressing that Nigeria had almost lost credibility in assessing the loans because of lack of payments of counterpart fund in the past. Adding that President Muhammadu Buhari's state visit to China in 2015, however, helped in restoring credibility with which Nigeria was working on. With that, we come to the end of news on the hour. AM Live continues shortly.